So FIRST actually stands for Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas. This is a 2023 rating the TEA has given us, but keep in mind as I go through this, it's based on fiscal year 22-23, and then we're presenting it in 25. So just please work with me here. I may get confused myself before we get to the end of it. Quick overview. Again, it states financial accountability rating system for schools, just like we have A through F now for our academic accountability. All districts in the state of Texas have an accountability system for school finances, again, the FIRST system. We submit certain information to TEA at the end of each fiscal year or at the end of our audit, which we're going to hear tonight. TEA accumulates that data and then they give us a FIRST rating based on that audit and that information. Another requirement is that this is posted in public notification, newspaper, and then we have a public hearing over it. So we let you know what our rating is and why it is what it is. Again, the purpose, ensure that each school district be held accountable, make sure we are good stewards of taxpayers' dollars, so we're doing the right thing, and achieve improved performance and management of their fiscal resources. That's the purpose of the FIRST system. The timeline, again, so in August 23, we closed the 22-23 budget. In January of 24, we received an audit of the 22-23 budget. Also, after that board meeting that is presented, we submit that audit in January of 24. The 22-23 financial audit is filed with TEA. And then in August 24, they send us a rating, again, 23-24 rating based on 22-23 data. That's it. This is not all confusing enough to begin with. Our notice this year was published in the paper January 5th, 2025. And then there are other pieces of financial integrity that are posted on our website. The first report is there, and then the conflict of interest and disclosures. And actually, I'll talk more about that as I wrap this presentation up. So there's 21 indicators in the FIRST system. The first 4, 1 through 4, are critical. What we mean by that is if you don't meet that standard, it's an automatic failure. It's an automatic F. So those are pretty nerve-wracking, obviously pretty important. And I'll go through these for you right now. So the first one was our complete financial audit submitted to TEA within 30 days of the January 28th deadline. If you don't get your audit submitted to TEA within that timeline, automatic failure. So it says within 30 days, January 28th is Tuesday of next week, so we'll get ours submitted to them tomorrow, Monday at the latest. I think the 30 days there is because they'll extend you a deadline if you had issues. Our auditors are amazing, but you can imagine when they have just a plethora of school districts that are responsible for auditing, this builds up on them. So sometimes your auditor and it's our responsibility to get them documents. So I'm not saying it's the auditor's fault. Sometimes it's just the back and forth of everything they need. So we did that with our 23-24 audit. No, our 22-23 audit. That's what I'm telling you. Was it unmodified opinion? Is indicator 2? Yes. Indicator 3. Was the district compliant with payments in terms of all debt agreements at the fiscal year end? It's not just paying our bills, but it's also our bond payments. Were we making timely and appropriate bond payments? And the answer is yes. And then the last one, did we make all the correct payments to TRS, Texas Workforce Commission, IRS, any other government agencies? So you can see those are pretty big deals, and we made sure we did all of those. Notice I went from indicator 4 to indicator 6 through 21. Indicator 5 used to be another critical indicator, and it is not used this year. And indicators 26 or 6 through 21, indicators 10 and 15 were not used for this year's FIRST rating. Gunner got an overall score of 86 on all the other remaining indicators. we lost points on indicators 7, 12, and 13, and I'm gonna go over those in just 1 second. So the first 4 is a yes or no, all yeses, thank goodness, and then the points, the numerical score comes from 6 through 21. This is what I pre-warned you about right here. I apologize, I know you can't see this. This report is on TEA though. If you want it, feel free to email me and ask me for it and I'll send it to you. Indicator 7, what the red part up here is telling us is what that's measuring. In short, it's measuring our fund balance. If you don't know what our fund balance is, it's our savings. You have a checking, you have a savings. In public education, finance system, we call our savings our fund balance. The scoring system down here, actually if you follow all these mathematical procedures over there, that's what it's telling you they did here. They give you a score down here. Well, our breakdown came down to 64. What's that mean? It means we had 64 days of cash on hand. And so that puts us down right here in this category. So we've got 6 points for indicator 7. It's a possible 10 points. You can see we lost 4 points on indicator 7. The recommended is at least 90 days or more. Essentially, the way we kind of talk about it is 3 months. It'd be 3 months, 90 days. So we're sitting here at 64 days. Indicator 12, correlation between our debt requirements and our property value. So what I mean by our debt requirements is our bond payments. How much money do we owe in bonds and in relation to our property values? And they do the math here and they give you a numerical breakdown and it says 13.00. And so it put us over here in this category. So this happens to be the year that we sold the remaining part of our bonds just from the bond we passed, 3 years ago now? Almost 3 years. So we passed and a $78 million bond. We sold that in 2 pieces. This happens to be the year we sold the other half of it. So pretty much our debt, what we owed or accumulated, was kind of maxed out that year, right? So going through this indicator asks about the school district's ability to make debt, principal, and interest payments. This is because our bond indebtedness, our long-term liabilities would need to decrease and/or our assessed property values would need to increase. Makes sense? So if what we owe in bonds goes down and our property values increase, then this starts to level back out. And that's what's going to be going on now, because again, we've sold all the bonds we have to sell. That number's maxed out. Our property values are going to continue to increase. Plus, we may be looking at paying a bond off early. That's kind of been the approach of our board or our district over the last couple of years, is to try to build up our INS or our bond savings so we can pay off bonds early. And if we did that, then this number would change drastically. Indicator 13 has to do with district's administrative cost ratio equal to less than the threshold. I have to be honest, I'm not really sure where the threshold comes from. Essentially what they're looking at is what we paid in function 41, which is all our administrative costs. That's how we code it, based on our ADA. Again, not our enrollment, but our ADA, how many kids show up on an average basis. And they do the math there, and we fell right here in our value, which put us in this category down here. 1,000 to 5,000 students, we got 8 points, so we lost 2 points there. Just to share with you this, again, you're going back to 22-23 data. This number is already improving as well. If you look down here, 22-23, function 41, our total was 887,000. Of that, payroll was 701. Just the next year, we dropped by 120,000, a little over 120,000. Same thing here, I think 126,000. So that number's improving again. And even more so when we look at this year, we're in 24, 25. So over the last 2 years, we've dropped our administrative cost total cost $227,000. So that number's gonna improve as well. We're gonna pick those points back up. So again, you see where we lost those points, the indicators we lost those, it gave us an 86, which is a B rating for our district. Some of the other things that go into the first rating, these are the disclosures I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that have to be on our website. So I'm not going to read through that list because I talked about each one of them in the following slide. Superintendent contract has to be posted on our website. You go to our website, you go to the menu bar, you go to the business link, you click on that, down in the menu on the bottom of the screen, you'll see specifically superintendent contract. So that is there, and that's where it will always be. Disclosures. These are disclosures that was just expenses from me or board members as far as traveling to trainings, lodging for trainings, and so forth and so on. You can see our board members do an amazing job of getting trained, and a lot of times they'll do it online, and it saves us a lot of money from over here. And in that fiscal year, I spent $222 traveling to trainings. Disclosure 3, any outside compensation received by superintendent, there was none. Gifts received by executive officers or board members in fiscal year, there were none. And the last one, this is just any business transactions between the school district and board members. This was a year where Ms. Bernard and Mr. Scano joined us in May, and there was some business between the school district and Ms. Marks. Typically that was for flowers that we ordered for events or something, and this could very well have been renting his event center for prom. So, but those are disclosures that we have to make the public aware of, and those are posted on our website. And that is the first report. Clear as mud. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Do any board members have any questions?
I don't have a question, but when I think back to typical first reports, I mean, there's two really interesting items that were new this time that weren't passed. One, and I think I consider a timing issue, which is on the debt, right? When we issued the debt, again, that's a couple years when this was measured. So that number's not going up anymore, it's actually coming down. So again, I think it's a timing issue, that cost us 2 points. 2 points. 2 points. Maybe more. No, I think that was actually funny. So I think that's a timing issue. And then the other one is the administrative percentage, which is also coming down. So again, and that costs us a couple of points. So what we normally see is somewhere in the 96 range, right? Because we're always going to be challenged on the fund balance.
Last year we lost points on 7 and 12 again. So the previous years I've done this report, so 3 other years we were at 90 every year.
Any questions from members of the audience? And with that, please stand adjourned at 6:49. Again. Welcome. And I want to call to order the meeting of the Gunter Independent School District Board of Trustees. Let the record show that there is a quorum of board members present, with Ms. Natalie Bernard unable to attend this evening. Furthermore, let the record show that this meeting has been duly posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Would you all please stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all.
All right, I'd like to welcome Mr. Scott Yerborough and Ron Rohde from Hankins East Up Audit Firm. They're here to present our 24 audits over 23-24 fiscal year.
Yes.
If I got that right. Yes. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here.
Our pleasure. Thank you for having us. Ron is going to distribute a copy of the report, so everyone has that. So I'll stall for a little bit and say how pleased we are to be here. We have the privilege of working with school districts all the way back, starting in 1965. It's our favorite work to do. We appreciate the opportunity to serve you this year. I also want to say that how much we enjoyed working with your new chief financial officer, who we had gotten to know at Gainesville ISD. So it was nice to see her and to work with her here. And I hope she's having a wonderful time away from the campus right now. You engage us really to do three things. You engage us to audit your financial statements, to perform a grant compliance audit that is required if you spend more than $750,000 of federal monies a year. So that's the second service we provide. And the third service, it takes a lot of time to prepare this type of report. So you engage us to help the district put together the report together. So those are the three things that we do for you. What I thought I might do, with your permission, is to just give you an overview of the report. I know that many of you have been on the board for a while, but governmental financial statements are a little different than for-profit and even not-for-profit financial statements. If you're relatively new, or it takes quite some time, even when we hire an experienced accountant, it usually takes them 2 years to become accustomed to what is unique about governmental financial statements. So if I can ask you to turn to page 1, I just want to give you kind of a quick overview. I would certainly invite questions if you have them while I give that overview. You don't have to wait till the end if you have a question that comes to mind, but I will save time, of course, to address whatever questions you have at the end. If you look at the table of contents, a governmental financial report really has 3 parts. One part is the fund financial statements that start on page 14. The fund financial statements, of course, are how districts operate. Monies are put in individual funds to make sure that they're spent in accordance with third-party requirements. So you have the general fund, the debt service fund, the capital project fund, grant funds, custodial funds, all of these different types of funds, so that the monies are segregated in order to make sure that you comply with the external requirements. All of those fund financial statements begin on page 14 and are the majority of this report. So we'll spend a little time kind of looking at the key fund balances in each of those funds, because that's how you operate. The second part of the report really begins on page 77. That's your federal monies. That's the testing that we do on those federal monies that you receive. Schedule K1 on page 45 is a listing of all the federal monies that you receive and how much you spent in each of those categories. We'll take a quick look at that as well. And then the third part of the report, after the fund financial statements, the federal section, is what's called the government-wide financial statements. They begin on page 12 and end on page 13. And if you're in the for-profit sector, or even the not-for-profit sector, these are the financial statements that are going to be more like what you're accustomed to seeing. These are the financial statements where all of those funds are brought together, consolidated, you actually add long-term assets and long-term liabilities, which you don't see in any of the fund level financial statements. So these are the ones that business people are most accustomed to relating to. So the report is organized to serve both internal needs and external needs, both of board members who are accustomed to for-profit and to like rating agencies that are monitoring your financial performance over time. So with that as an overview, I would invite you to start with the fund level balance sheet, which is on page 14. So why don't we turn there? Most individuals, the first number that they want to know is where did our fund balance end at the end of the year for the general fund. So on page 14, you can see the fund balances for all of your governmental fund types. In that first column, general fund, you can see that you ended the 24 fiscal year, August 31st, 2024, with a fund balance of $1,050,319. If you turn to Exhibit C3, which is on page 18, this is where you'll see that the fund balances for all the general fund, debt service, capital projects fund. And you can see you started the year with a general fund balance of $1,482,583. We ended the year with a fund balance again of $1,050,319. So that's what happened in the general fund. You can skip over and see with a lot of the construction taking place, the amount of construction monies that were spent, bond proceeds, monies that were spent out of the capital projects fund. You can see that your debt service fund ended the year with a fund balance of $1,688,390 under the debt service funds. And so a lot of times these are kind of the key metrics that, again, you're tracking as a board that go into the calculation of some of those first ratings that Mr. Martindale talked about earlier. If you take a look at page 51, you'll see how your general fund did relative to the budget that you adopted. So let's take a look at page 51. And on that page, you can see that you have both the original budget that's presented in the first column, then you have the final amended budget that's presented in the second column. The third column is the actual expenditures for the year. So if you look at your actual expenditures for the year out of the general fund of $14,121,599 relative to the amended budget of $14,947,986, you had a positive budget variance relative to expenditures of $826,000. So you did better than budget on the expenditure side by $826. And when you combine that with doing better than budget on the revenue side of $112,271, you get an overall positive budget variance then of $938,658. Okay. Now while we're here, we'll also skip over to page 72, where you'll see the budget to actual comparison for the food service fund, and then the budget actual comparison for the debt service fund. And so again, if you look at page 72, you'll see that you had actually budgeted to spend down the fund balance of food service because, as you know, there's a restriction of how much money you're allowed to carry forward. So a lot of school districts are trying to spend that down at this point. And you were able to do that to the extent of $52,000. So you began the year with a fund balance of $284,000, ended the year with a fund balance of $232,000. Okay. Skipping over the page, then to page 73, here's your budget to actual comparison for your debt service fund. And you got very close on that budgeting. Total expenditures of $5.196 and ended up spending, but actual expenditures $5,197,000. So those are a little bit easier to budget, as you know. But you end the year again with a fund balance in your debt service fund of $1,688,390. Now, while we're near the end of the report, let's take a look at those federal expenditures. If you can look at page 84, this is a listing of all of your federal funds and how much you spent out of each one of those grants during the year. You can see the total expenditure of federal monies were $2,953,195. A lot of which is in that co-op grants that you're currently managing. So total of $2.9 million. There's also an additional, let's see, on page 85, the SHARS money, which is recorded in the general fund, is an addition to that, which again kind of brings the total up to $3.9 million of federal money spent. Okay. All right. Next thing I would do is just take a look at those government-wide financial statements, beginning on, what was it, page 12. So again, if you're a business person or associated with nonprofits, these are the financial statements that are going to look most familiar to you. So now we see the long-term fixed assets. Now we see the long-term debts. This is where your pension liability shows up. This is where all the funds are consolidated together. And as you can see, we have a positive net position on the balance sheet. $352,000. That's actually an improvement of almost $2 million over last year. A lot of those numbers are very difficult to control, as you know, because a lot of it has to do with pension liabilities that move around a lot based on the TRS's actuaries that come in and try to predict and estimate what that liability is going to be in the future when your employees who are working now eventually retire. So there's a lot of movement in those numbers. So it's not completely within your control, but again, at least this year it moved in a nice positive direction. And usually the last thing that I like to highlight before kind of turning it over to questions, if you can turn to page 52, this is where you can see what that pension liability has done over time, over the last 10 years. This is one of the few places in the report where they give you nice longitudinal data to get a sense of how are things trending. And if you look at page 53, back in fiscal year 2015, the district's net pension liabilities was $1.9 million. Well, look at what that number's done over a 10-year period. And some of that, of course, is due to growth, but a lot of it also has to do with kind of cost shifting that has occurred. In fact, if you look at the not the last line, but the next to the last line, that district's proportionate share of the net pension liability, the district's proportionate share relative to the state has gone from 25% in 2015 all the way up to 55% in 2024. So the state's been pretty calculated and been pretty clever about how they're shifting that cost to the district over time, which again is another reason why those numbers have moved so much. So I know I've gone on for a long time. I apologize, but just wanted to kind of give you an overview. We had, again, a great audit period. What you really want to know is clean opinion. These financial statements can be relied upon. They're materially correct. We enjoyed working with Allison, Mr. Martindale, and the whole team. No findings in the grant compliance area. So we had a very positive experience working with the district this year.
You covered my question, which was how were they to work with and if you have any issues?
Yeah, no, we enjoy working with, I don't know how you refer to, we call her Alice, but Mrs. Greer.
Yeah.
We enjoy working with her very much.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Very good. I get lost in these.
Yeah.
It's good, it's good that you did, you guys, this is your first one with us, so thank you, this was very, very well
Good.
presented.
Good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate y'all being here. And, no audience participation, public comments tonight, which would lead us straight to superintendent reports. Monthly financial reports are all the usual documents you have in there. I'm not going to attempt to explain anything without Ms. Greer here when it comes to our financials. If you see something that you had a question about, feel free to reach out to me. I'll reach out to Alice and I'll give you the appropriate answer for our finances. Again, this is usual, it's the same documents you see every month when it comes to our financials. And I'm not going to try to explain them like Alice does. You guys are good, okay? Moving on to communications, enrollment updates. If you turn to page, I think that's 30, you'll see our current enrollment numbers, elementary, middle school, high school. You can see from our December board meeting to tonight, we've grown by 16 students. That's a positive for us. That's great. I did a little bit of math, having 16 additional students in the district. If they showed up 95% of the time, because 95, 96 is our current ADA, we add about $90,000 to our revenue. So we appreciate those 16 people coming to go. After that, we have bond construction update.
Funeral. Kurt is at a funeral right now,
Oh,
so he won't be here. If
okay.
you have questions over the packet, I can answer them. Maybe.
Report I got beginning of this week, so everything's moving right along as scheduled. If you would like, when we get done tonight, we can walk in the new gym storm shelter, show that to you. Gift is holding a bingo night at the new elementary on Saturday night. So it gives us an opportunity to walk through that campus and get a sneak peek. Just for everyone's information in the room, we're calling it a sneak peek and not an open house or ribbon cutting. We want to make sure all our furniture comes in and our building is furnished and complete before we open it up for our community members to see. We want you to see the finished package. But Saturday night, you can walk around and see some empty classrooms and offices, and bingo will be held in the new cafeteria. It's beautiful. So that's all I have for bond construction. Thank you, Mr. Bell. Principal reports. Always ladies first. That's fine.
Just wanted to start off by saying, just as it is School Board Appreciation Month, thank you all for your service and your leadership. It's been a joy to work with you these last year and this year, and just thank you for always supporting us in everything that we do. I don't have much for January. Our attendance rate is about 95% right now. Middle school basketball going on tonight. The boys are doing great, girls are doing great. Our advisory class is working on their new project, which is a Valentine's Day project for Tribute Senior Living Center in Prosper. We worked with them last year, but we're hoping to donate stuffed animals and a box of chocolates for every single resident. So we're working on that right now. They're doing a great job collecting all of that. We're completing our middle of the year math testing, so that's finishing up. We have a vertical planning session scheduled already for February 7th. So our teachers are going to get to have subs rotate throughout their classrooms and meet vertically for the first time, probably in a good while. So we're really excited about that and the planning for kids that's going to come out of that. The student council is working on a middle school escape room. We wanted to do something different for the spring. So they are actually going to visit an escape room next week and then going to bring it back to us, and we're going to open it up to the community. So we're going to structure that, and hopefully that will be a big hit with the kids and everyone. As we reported last month, our middle school UIL did wonderful. We're working on 5th grade UIL right now, so our 5th grade is participating with the elementary school. So teams are being formed and practices started, and we hope to win again because that's what we do. So that'll be really, really fun to see also. Our classroom events, we have the Willy Wonka musical starting with middle school and high school. It's the big musical for the spring, one of my favorite things. Our all-region band concert was last weekend, and we had Joshua. He's actually a new student, but he made all-region at his previous campus, so he got to go to the all-region concert and participate and represent Gunners, so that was really fun. Coach Mack's science class today, actually, and this week has been working on measurement and the human body. So they were doing wingspans compared to their height today in the hallway. They're marking all over my walls in pencil, but they erased it, so it was okay. And then we have a lot of our ELA classes are working on poetry right now. It always cracks me up listening to middle school kids talk about poetry. I think it's probably their least favorite unit, and I love it. It's so fun to quiz them about it. They're also working on argumentative essays, so that's the one they like the best. So that's what's going on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My report's also short since it hasn't been that many school days since we've been back, especially with the snow. That being said, as you can imagine, a lot of our mentor techs around this time of year do deal with kids playing in snow and building snowmen. So it was kind of a perfect learning experience for the kids to make some text-to-life connections about what actual real snow looks like versus ice. Because that was the first snow a lot of our elementary kids have actually ever seen. Also, we had our second celebration of learning. We had 2 staff members that were recognized by their peers. Mrs. Brittany Rummage received the teaching award, and Mrs. Shannon Parker received the supporting award. We also recognized students for Student of the Month, as well as True Grit Awards for showing character, a boy and girl from each class. And we had about 120 readers or champions that were recognized at that assembly, as well as our second incentive perfect attendance winner. We had just over 100 students who had perfect attendance for the second 9 weeks. Our attendance overall was 94.4%. As y'all probably encountered, there's been a lot of the norovirus and different things going around. I myself was out with sickness last week, so I think that contributes to some of those numbers and certain grade levels. Some highlights from some enrichment activities that we've been doing. 3rd grade just completed their solar system projects, where they were able to create a solar system display and practice public speaking and presenting to their class. And 4th grade just had a culminating project where they actually created a survey. They were able to survey their classmates and create different ways to represent that data through stem and leaf plots, dot plots, so some real enriching content there. Something else, but it escapes me. Do you want to talk about the second grade?
Yeah, the second grade did they got the popcorn machine out and they set it up in the hall with all the second graders to start doing adjectives to describe, so that at first they only let them smell it as it cooked and had them describe it, and then they let them touch it and describe it and then eat it. I thought that was really cool.
That was very cool. The other thing I remember what the other thing was. Our leadership teams started doing different things to help out these servant leaders around the school. Today, Mr. Bell actually volunteered to drive our leadership teams out to the new campus so the kids could kind of see the behind the scenes, what goes into building a school from the ground up. And you should have heard them today. They're so geeked up and excited about this new school. So definitely come out Saturday, buy a bingo ticket, and come check out the new campus.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Davis. We'll have Mr. Lundberg here for Mr. Barton. He's at junior high basketball game.
Yeah, he had to go over there at Spotsboro, so we need to send somebody every time we play there. So what Josh has on here, we're a little different than them. We have kids doing stuff over the break, and so we never really stop when it comes to just some different things. Our attendance is hovering about 95. He said with our attendance stuff, And we do have a list of stuff. So starting last week, we had the health science students, Coach Applewhite. A lot of those guys, they participated in Stop and Bleed with Baylor, Scott and White. So we got all them kids certified in that stuff, which is good for them. Ag-wise, UTI Dallas and Fort Worth came out and talked to all of our ag class kids. They pulled a big trailer out, had cars on it, motorcycles, showed them how they worked on engines. It was actually pretty good. I mean, it showed a lot of kids that college isn't the only route when it comes to being successful and making money. Host a sponsoring the blood drive February 13th from 9 to 3, if anybody's interested out front. Like Sarah said, the Willy Wonka auditions are next week, 5th through 12th, and you don't got to be enrolled in theater to try out, so if you want to give it a shot, a shot. Coach Fazell over the break, I think it was a few days ago, he was named Padilla Pole 3A Division II Coach of the Year, which was well deserved. Arnalea Allman went to do her twirl routine. I believe it's called the Free Baton routine in South Carolina, and she qualified for the Worlds in Italy. She goes this, I think it's August. So I don't know a lot about twirling, but I know that what she does is pretty high end, and I think she's got a career at it and going to college. Micah Fisher was over the break, All Texas-Homeland cross country for the 2024 season. Cheer competed last week, finished 14th out of all 3 Division II schools. I know you were there. I think there was a little controversy, but I don't know cheer enough to understand the controversy.
Mention the Russian judge.
So I know there's stuff. Yeah, I heard it from the girls. Yeah, right. The following GHS students: Kendra Campbell, Eric Frere, Christina Grayer, Justin Grayer, Brooklyn Newfield, Caleb Cyrus, Sarah Smith, Maddox Wagner performed an all-region band concert on the 18th. Right now, girls basketball is currently in first place in the district. They're ranked 4th in the state. They're 26-3 overall, 8-0 in district. Beating Pottsboro last week, I think, kind of sealed our 1 seed. Playoff game will be tough the way they're doing it now, sending big schools and small schools. So we'll probably match up with Rains. We avoided Winsboro by beating Pottsboro, so that was big for us. Boys right now are tied for second with a record of 5-2. Their overall records, not a ton of games. We didn't start until football was over. And I'll say this about our basketball programs. The 2 hires we made were, you couldn't have found any better in the state. I mean, we're good, and they hold kids accountable, and they do it the right way. When you guys get y'all's packages and stuff, y'all got cards from the high school, which all the teachers signed. We were the only campus that did that. Junior high didn't. Elementary. But Brianna Befford Walters, she created the whole card. She drew it all, did everything with it. And then all the floral arrangements, obviously, are from Miss Kimball's floral design class. Softball starts scrimmages tomorrow, baseball next week, track the next week. So spring is we'll have a lot of kids moving and shaking and out of class. So that's it. Thank you all.
Mr. Lindbergh, we want to thank the high school for all 3 different packages over there. I'm glad y'all at the high school thought about the board members here in January, teacher appreciation.
Yeah, we did cards. I mean, we wrote it.
Actually, principals, please don't leave when we get done with the regular part of the meeting. I'd like you guys to join the board members over there for a picture. If we don't take care of that, board members shall immediately will hunt all of us down tomorrow. So we can get that picture with principals before you guys leave. They're not going anywhere. They want to hear the one agenda item.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not going anywhere. But that is very generous.
And we can always take the gifts back. No, I'm kidding.
There was a comment about if the vote didn't go the way they wanted, they were taking their gifts back. But I won't tell you who said that. Mr. Lindbergh wouldn't want you to know that. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get us refocused here. Moving on with communications, item B, Texas Department of Agricultural grant. So Ms. Rogers brought this to us the other day. Just beside herself. So she received this grant from Texas Department of Agriculture for $100,000 towards equipment. That's $50,000 towards the middle school and $50,000 towards the high school. Her plan is to put in new ovens that are being put in or are already in the new elementary. Sounds like that oven can do everything for you, from seasoning to, not smoking, or I'm joking, it's not seasoning, but it does all kinds of things. I know food services is working to go over to the elementary if they haven't already, to train on that new oven and make sure it does all the things. And so she was beside herself. She probably, I think she was about to tear up. She said she's been applying for this grant for a number of years, probably at least 10 plus.
I think she said 20.
20 years.
20 years.
And she finally got it. And so we're excited for her, but there's no way any of us in this room are as excited as she was. But that's great news for our food services in our district. I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that.
It's about time. It was a great food service.
Right.
I mean, I
Really
see a
good.
couple of them out there.
Thank you. Yes.
Item 5 is TASB policy update 124. Guys, this ranges from accountability to purchasing, to food and nutrition management, to employee welfare, to the school day, to student welfare. It's from pages 36 to 69 in your binder. As usual, this is just the first reading. So presented to you tonight, this month. If you have any questions about any of it, please reach out to me between now and our next board meeting, and I'll have those answers for you. But there's no way I can tell you everything that's in these pages, and all these people that are here to hear one vote don't want me to go through all those things. But our first reading of TASB Update 124. And then upcoming events, nothing out of the ordinary there. February board meeting will be back in the administration building, just so you know, but March will be back over here because it's a recognition month, so we'll be recognizing teachers and students. We need the space, and this tends to be a pretty good board room. So that's really the only things on there. Again, marking your calendar for May 22nd graduation, 8 o'clock, Tiger Stadium. Weather permitting. That's all I have for communications. We have board member reports, communications committee update. We met, I'm sorry, my week's running together. I think we had a meeting last week. And just so you know, our communications committee, I think I've shared this in November, December, we didn't have any agenda items. No one from the committee had anything to put on the agenda, so those were canceled. We had this meeting last week. We had one agenda item, and it's just talking about the data that's available to us from Parent Square, performance of Parent Square, things we can pull out of that. I'll be getting that information, bringing it to you, or emailing it to you. One of the things we're most excited about, I don't see Ms. Lorenzini, but she's done an amazing job. And really, guys, this may not sound like much, but it's a huge deal that we have 100% communication, connectivity with Parent Square. Usually a school district might get up to about 95, 96% of the information in your communication system being accurate and contacting everyone. I talked to her one day, it was at like 97 or 98 or maybe 99%. She told me there were specifically 3 families in the district, and she was hunting them down. Apparently she did, because by the time we had that communications meeting, it was at 100%. So she's amazing. We did shift in that meeting though. We kind of made an executive decision for, instead of communications committee meeting monthly, going to quarterly meetings since we're not having any agenda items. And it seems like Parent Square is doing good. That was one of our main things when we formed the committee and started meeting. And with that, I have item B, which is on page 70 in your binder, and that's just in regards to May 3rd board election. See the calendar there, the dates to file to run was Wednesday, January 15th. It closes on Friday, February 14th at 5 o'clock. Mr. Johnson has signed up to run for his position again, which is position 3. And we have one community member that signed up for position 4, and that's Mr. Jason Paget. So just wanted to update you there. If no one else signs up and we don't have an election, that saves the district in between $4,500 and $9,000. That's what it costs us to hold an election. So anyway, just sharing that information. And that may be the turn the page on my email communications.
That brings us to consent agenda, which consists of the minutes from the December 16th, 2024 meeting, December 2024 bills, the 2023-2024 audit report, the 2024 tax roll value, the order May 3rd, 2025 school board trustee election, the joint election agreement with the city of Gunner for the May 3rd, 2025 election, and the contract with Grayson County Election Administration for the May 3rd, 2025 election services. Does anyone wish to pull anything from the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, and then I think that brings us to the reason many people are here this evening, to discuss considering approval to participate in a 4-day school calendar pilot program for 3 years, beginning with this next calendar year, 2025-2026. We had quite a bit of discussion last time. Do we have a motion to consider? Prior to discussion?
Anybody from the crowd want to speak? I don't mind. I'll speak. I gotta go there.
I just think the one thing with this that I hear districts talk about, and what I worry about, is losing teachers over something like this. I know Collinsville votes Monday, and from what I hear from their assistant soup is probably gonna go through. At the high school, I think we're fortunate right now because after 3 years, we've kind of gotten our halls where we want when it comes to teachers. And I know there have been people that have said, well, if it doesn't go through, then, we're gonna look for something. And as a teacher, I don't blame them. Like for me, it doesn't matter. I work Fridays, Saturdays, whatever. But that's just my overall concern talking to teachers is I don't want to run people off who are really good teachers and good fits for this places and kids really like them and who are high-end teachers. Because we don't do it and other people do it. And that's really my biggest thing because like I said, our culture is good. Our kids like our teachers. They're learning. Test scores are good. So that's kind of my biggest deal with it. If nobody around us was doing it, it's kind of hit and miss, but I just don't want to lose people for that reason. And we will. We will. So anyway, that's my biggest reason for the whole thing.
Thank you, Mr. Lindberg.
Yep.
Any comments? I would reiterate that I feel like we hear it time and time again that our district wants to be the best at everything we do. And our community supports our district very well. Our parents, our parents and our students. We have a lot of community support. We're very fortunate for that. And we have the best staff. We have the best teachers, the best of everything, the best food service, the best front office staff. And I feel like if they want it and they get behind it, we'll be the best in the 4th week as well. So.
Mr. Lindberg, just to clarify your position, is that you feel like we could lose teachers or potentially lose teachers if we don't go to the 4?
Yeah, so,
Okay.
there's just so many around us doing it. You have Anna, you have Tyler, Collinsville's gonna go to S&S. Solana passed their bond, and they're gonna give raises, this year. You know, I think to keep teachers, obviously, budget-wise, it's not their money-wise, you know, don't people alone. And it wasn't just like that. I mean, like I talked to like Coach Lozelle, it's usually a part of it, like he says, it would help them out tremendously how they can structure athletics and things like that. Man was good with it. It's going to help Ag a ton. You know, we almost lost Mr. Ashlock last year because he was going to go to Honeygrove who did it because it gave him more time with his kids on Fridays to do shows and things like that. And we talked to him in state. I just don't want to lose programs and people and things like that with it, and I think that you will. You know, I mean, there's been discussions. I think that's today, like at the high school, it's talked about a lot. You know, you talk to people in the community when you send out the surveys. What was it, 2 months ago? Whenever it was, like a lot of times you send out surveys, you don't get an overwhelming response from the community, but you had almost 500 votes, and it was very strong as to yes, like let's do this. And for us at the high school, just an example, last Friday, I mean, it was the first Friday back from break. I mean, there was not a whole lot going on. We had 65 out. I mean, it's hard on him who teaches AP classes. It's hard on Ms. Reeves who teaches math classes. Just nobody's there, so they just have to reteach everything. It's just like a never-ending cycle. So, yeah, I do think that if you don't do the 4-day, and you stick with the 5-day, we'll lose good teachers. So,
Thank you.
And along those lines, Mr. Scano, I read an article today, or one of the newsletters I was sent today, that this week both Decatur and Whitney ISDs have voted to go to the 4-day weeks as well. Just so all I'm pointing out is more and more going to do it.
right.
It could be an issue for teacher retention. I have a strong feeling Collinsville is going to vote for it.
Yeah.
And they're probably looking at cherry pick some of their teachers. They have teacher openings right now, we do not. So.
And I'm surprised he's not here tonight. He said he may come by. Assistant Sue, that we know, but he said he wanted to see how the vote turned out because he said that if we do it, he's pretty worried that if they don't do it, then they're obviously we don't have openings, but I'm saying he's like worried about the same thing, or them going to SNS because they do it or no. So it's just I think this area is flooded with it right now. I think it's going to be bigger. Even the bigger schools. I know Aubrey's talked about it too. You know, they're bigger for it.
So, the only thing I would add on what you said, I mean, the information we got last month, we had a very good group of cross-section people that participated in a committee to kind of investigate and do surveys. We got, it's the first time I've seen a survey that's come back with that level of participation and consistent results, right? Whether you were talking about community members, parents, staff, students, okay. I understand the student response. Do I think there will be challenges to it? Do I think it's still some unknowns as to whether, I mean, it's still some districts that the team looked at and have been doing it a while, but there's a lot been going on during those years, right? So just sharing my 2 cents as I thought about this is the data is inconclusive. I do think the competitiveness of what Gunner will offer from an employee experience compared to other districts could be put at an unfair disadvantage if we don't. I know there are going to be some people who this is going to impact negatively, at least they perceive that, don't know yet. I do agree with you that Gunner rises to the challenge, whatever it is. Teachers, we will make it, and I think you said it last night, we'll be the best 4-day, if it's decided, we'll be the best 4-day district around. I'm glad we're looking at it on a trial period or a pilot period. I get it. It can't be a 1-year pilot. 2 years that may not make sense. 3 sounds right. So, I think it's something we've got to do to be just to remain competitive because we're going to continue to get challenges on the financial side in public ed, and we've got to do what we can do to give back to our to our employees who, put their heart and soul into our kids, and whatever we can do to make that, a benefit to them, we should do it, because I know they will still make sure our kids get what they need. So, I think you got an idea how I'm.
In our last meeting, we talked about, one of the things that I said is I really just want to make sure that we have something, some sort of measurement, so that we can say distinctively, if this is not, if we meet these, or if we get to this level, then we're done. Like, I don't want to just have this ball rolling downhill in the wrong direction and not really have any clarity on how to stop it, if it does go in the wrong direction. So is there a way, or do we have any ideas how to put some sort of backstops in there or something where we can say, hey, this isn't working, so we're not even going to finish out year 2.
Sure. We can look at any data you guys want to monitor, whether it's staff attendance, student performance, you name it, we'll monitor it. As far as the calendar goes, the board can come back in here at any meeting and say, we're changing the calendar. So
Yeah.
if it was going way sideways in the middle of year 2, we could reset a calendar for the spring of, what's up, 27?
Yeah.
So,
Well, so like what you're talking about, so like the place I looked at was Lavernia, we modeled theirs after Athens. And what they did, they were a 3-year pilot. But so the lady was very good at it. She's Dr. Helen wasn't, she's like a guru with this stuff. But what she did there was at the end of their first year, they were a 3-year pilot, but I'm not sure how they worded it. But so at the end of the year, they did surveys, again, to every community member, student, and teacher, and whatever basic questions you ask, and just said, how do you feel about how it went this past year? And she said, this was them, but she said they decided to do it because their answers were overwhelming, like, don't go back, it's been great for our kids. Testing, I know a lot of maybe kids get a lot out of it because they have time to do homework, but she said that's how they clarified at the very end of that first year was, I don't know, maybe March or April, this is great, please don't go back, or overwhelming, this is not great, and then I guess you would make decisions then. But she said they're just going to go on with the pilot for the next 2 years, but she said she doesn't think it will change just because it was so successful the first year. So that's your input for everybody.
I think that's a minimum. I agree
Yeah.
with that. That's a minimum requirement to have that survey at the end of the year. But then there should also be, our goal is student outcomes, so there's got to be some sort of metric there that we can.
So Jim, I think the fact that if we decide that this is what we're going to do, it just says this is what we're going to do. It doesn't say we can't change direction.
Right.
And I would agree that Marvell, you would go back to the committee where it was like, let's think about what are those checkpoints, what are those things we're going to measure periodically, right? Again, we wouldn't want to make a decision and then you quickly go back the other way. I mean,
Right.
we'd have to think about it, right? But I think that should be part of it, because just because if we say, yeah, okay, let's do it through the pilot, that doesn't mean that we can't change
Right.
down the road. But, we need to make sure that it's something we're comfortable with, and putting that on the administration, saying, hey, come back and let us know what are you going to measure?
Yeah.
And then let's put that on our calendars as to how we're going to look at that.
And I think you get it too with like what they do elementary wise, like the map testing and things like that. You'll be able to, throughout the year, you're still going to get the same data that you're getting on the 5-day. If you get to the end, it's less like skewed and like way off, and then you have different conversations.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because the testing's all going to be the same. They're going to be in school the same amount of minutes. They're still going to do all the stuff that they do, junior high wise, high school wise, SATs, all that stuff, So you're going to get the data at the end, when it comes to what we're doing right now.
So I think what Jim's kind of saying is, we're already looking at the data. We're already seeing these numbers, but maybe what we would request from you would be, what numbers do we want to continue to see to keep this program going? If we're gonna look at attendance, what numbers do we need to see in order for this to be the the right thing for our students. If we're looking at MAP data or STAR scores or whatever metrics, we're looking at what data do we need to see to be encouraged. That this is a good choice and we need to continue down this path.
I think it's the most fair thing for everyone, for the community and for the staff, just to be able to see, well, if we did make a decision in a year or two or whatever to go back, here's why. And it's not just sort of, it's only fair to them.
It's gotta be based on something.
And she did say her true data she believes is gonna be the second year. Like when it comes to the test scores and stuff, just to get the first year under, when the second year will be like a big data year ago. Yeah, it's good.
First year's gonna be a lot.
Yeah.
I would say that at a minimum, I know we're saying it's a 3-year pilot, at a minimum, it's 2 years.
Yes.
Right, unless the wheels completely come off, which isn't gonna happen.
No.
But for some reason, we have anarchy.
Yeah.
We might shift early, but you're right, because the first year is gonna be a learning curve, and the second year is gonna be everybody's gonna get into the rhythm, and then we'll have to.
And I think you're good with a 2-year pilot because that gives you some exact data for 2 years and then if you go, let's scrap this, or this is strong, and you keep rolling with it.
Well, and just to say too, just from coming in the classroom, it's like at the end of that second year, now you know what it is you need to work on. So I do see the importance of the third year, because now this is the measures we're gonna take, we're gonna put it into place. And if they don't work, then at the end of that third year,
I'm gonna piggyback on her. My sister teaches in a 4-day district. She moved to a 4-day district a couple years ago. This is her second year. First year she said was terrible. Like everyone was just nervous, getting their feet wet, figuring out what to do. She said second year was amazing. It's getting a lot better. And she said, now we know what to do and we're looking forward to the third year. So feeling confident that I have her as a resource as a teacher is awesome. But hearing her say that first year is kind of messy and that's normal. And then that second year, she said, we feel really confident, we know what we're doing. She's actually said she will never go back to a 5-day.
Really?
She said, I will never, and she's been teaching for almost 30 years. She said, I will never. I'm happy and I love it. So.
I'm gonna piggyback on that. I think, when we come from the classroom perspective, I do think that first year is gonna come with challenges and it's going to be hard because we're gonna have to adjust our pacing and our curriculum, which is a huge feat when it comes to the planning side before those kiddos walk in the classroom. So that first year is probably gonna feel pretty overwhelming, but I think that second year, once you're like, okay, this is what it looks like and you get rolling. So I do see the staff maybe being stressed or overwhelmed that first year and having some negatives, but I think it's gonna have more positives as we keep going.
Our theme at the elementary next year is grace, so we already know
Just
it.
give us grace.
I mean, I think from an academic perspective as a district, that's the only thing I'm gonna say to it. I think number one, most districts that are moving to this are doing it for teacher retention. Bottom line, they're not. So we need to have those metrics in place academically that need to be in place, whether we do a 4-day or a 5-day. What's gonna change is what they're all saying, which is what I was gonna say. We are gonna have to adjust that pacing, those extra minutes that we're spending on those 4 days. We just have to be very careful to make sure that we're utilizing those 40 minutes. If they're still in, like, a lot of Region 10, for example, that we service with is still in the process of trying to help school districts that have moved to that 4-day with, YAGs, which are their year at Lancer, their scope and sequence. So that first year is gonna be very messy and, we're gonna have to spend a lot of time working through that. And so I think it would be definitely unfair after a year to say, okay, if this is something that we do, you're done. So I agree with you, like 2 years at least at a minimum. Because I just think that first year it's not gonna be pretty, and it's gonna be hard, so.
To that point, also, one of the 4-day options that was presented by the calendar committee and we kind of looked at, there's one Friday a month that is marked as professional development. So that means staff would become to work one Friday a month. And we met today talking about if this passes, what do those days look like? And we're talking about the urgency of mapping those out sooner rather than later. So if we need to bring in Region 10 or an expert in whatever area, we're getting them on the calendar now instead of trying to do it as next school year starts. But we recognize that in our leadership meeting this morning, that those first 2, 3, maybe even 4 months or the first semester might be limited to just giving teachers time to plan and vertical plan as well as team plan, and just make sure we're zeroed in on the target and what that looks like, instead of trying to fill it up with other things. Our conversation was then we turn around, we have some mid-year data, and so the spring Fridays, we'll still have staff development, but then we start including not just student enrichment, but working with those students that need remediation and bringing those on campus. And I'm not saying a full day either, I'm saying a half day, so teachers still have a half day to work and plan and organize as well. Because that's one of the things we heard as we talked to other districts. This is vital for teachers to catch their breath. Teachers feel overwhelmed, they feel underpaid, underappreciated, and to an extent, that's the way society sees you, unfortunately. But just to speak to the point you were talking about, pacing is going to change, so we want to give some of those first days of staff development, the teachers time to just work on that, and not tell them, hey, we're going to fill up this day of staff development. You need to figure out that pacing stuff on your weekend. You have 3 3-day weekends, you figure it out. No, that's not what those days require. So anyway, that was my 2 cents about that. Thank you for mentioning that.
I'm gonna jump back in real fast. I also think if we are gonna have the days be a little bit longer in order to go down a day, we have to put some of the responsibility on the parents to make sure that their kids are attending the full day. Because we already have kids that leave constantly for so many appointments, and I get it, they're at the end of the day, but when you have kids literally leaving once or twice a week, every single week, we are losing a lot of instruction by going down to a 4-day week. If they're still gonna continue that at a 4-day week, we are gonna lose a lot of time with those kids, and I don't see our scores being great if we're losing it on both ends.
I would plan for that.
We'll get there. Thank you all.
If I could just speak as a parent, because I'm Frederick Geisendorf, I sit on the calendar committee, and these guys are really working hard on it, and it's very, very insightful on a lot of things. When I did my research for the committee, as I was looking into it, I found that there was about 1,800 schools in the United States that are on 4-day week, which 25% of those are on Monday, because they probably let their students pick the day. And the 75% are on Fridays. They didn't give any statistics in some of the reports that I was reading about their pilot programs, but I think there's a very interesting stat that came to me, is that there's only about 25 schools east of the Mississippi River that are 4-day week. And the rest are west of the Mississippi. And I noticed, and I have a relative that's pretty high up in the education of the state, not Texas, and I noticed that their state had 4. And I said, hey, tell me a little bit about these 4 schools. He said, yeah, that happened before the state came in and said, we're going to prohibit that. And I said, well, why would they want to prohibit it? He said, well, they've got like those 4 schools immediately had this huge advantage over a lot of things. Everybody wanted to go there. Everybody wanted to go. All the teachers were applying there. And so there was a huge influx of that. But they are still looking at it with a team to figure out if this is something they want to roll out on a statewide basis or allow them an option under these parameters and that kind of thing. But I can tell you, as being on that committee, I was told and felt the onus of being an ambassador for it. Tell me what you feel. And I had very, very positive from the community, from people, just in general, hey, tell me what you think. You're asking me about it, tell me what you think about it. And, I think that I had one person mention childcare, and then as I stepped through some of the scenarios we looked at where everybody thought this was a huge issue and ended up being a 10-person issue, after I talked about that a little bit, and then that person came back to me and said, you know what, really, it's not an issue, actually. I just wanted to throw that out there because, you know, you can't let it just go easy, right? And so I've had a very, very positive response, and I'm very thankful that you guys allowed me to be on that committee review. It's, you know, I think it's a competitive advantage with the school districts around us, but it's also a competitive advantage to some of our states next door that could draw more people in here, because we will need more people here. Absolutely. So, thank you.
I've been sitting here and I've been a teacher, I'm a mom now too. And I don't have anything like to rebuttal or anything. Just something to kind of for all of us to kind of sit on, for y'all to kind of sit on before you just decide, but yes, are we doing what's best for teachers? Of course, I've been a teacher. I'm obsessed with our teachers. They're the best, and you will not convince me otherwise. I love our teachers. So are we doing what's best for teachers? But I think on the backside of this, and I think all the teachers would agree with me, the teachers that I love and I know would, are we doing what's best for kids? So I think as we sit on that and we make a decision, one way or the other, I think having those two at hand, which we do have the teachers, I've heard that mentioned, and I 3,000% agree, but I think also, are we also considering, is this what's best for kids?
On that. I cannot be the mom that I am and do what's best for my child if I'm not taking care of myself and doing all the things I need to do for her. I will say, as a classroom teacher, that was my dream job. I remember talking to all my, you know, you're just a hygienist or whatever, you didn't have to go home on Friday and do anything to prepare. But I always wanted a day. If I had a day to prepare, even if it turns out to be a day a month, or however you were mentioning, you know, without the kids in the room, to actually put the things on paper, make the plans, rather than my 45-minute conference. The conference is where I wanted to conference with the parents, make a phone call home, shoot some emails. But when you're limited to that 45 minutes, you know, after you use the bathroom or whatever, just the minimal things, that one Friday a month, to put all that into, I feel like I would have been much more organized and just prepared and could differentiate, but, you know, differently, just all the things if I had, you know, the one day.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I meant like, so our teachers, we're doing what's best for teachers, but also so our teachers can do what's best for our kids.
Absolutely.
Which makes our kids better. So that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm with the
And
teachers,
keeping-
3,000%. Y'all are with me.
And keeping turnover to a minimum is also very valuable. And that's not a metric other than turnover that shows up on scores, that shows up on a lot of things, quality of life for the student, relationships, how you know, you have to have a relationship with your student. And if they're constantly changing who's doing what, that can cause problems.
Mr. Geisendorf mentioned childcare, so just briefly, if we go that direction, I think I've shared this once, but there's more people in the room, so feel free to share this with anyone you know that's nervous about childcare. The district is currently working with the daycare in town. It's gonna have room to grow and expand, that they would offer 1 day a week childcare to those people that needed it on Fridays. Actually, we've been in talks so that if it passed at some point in time in the next couple of weeks, I think the district could even share that information, like cost and everything. If you need this, it's there through Little Tiger Academy. So we've been trying to address that aspect as well. We don't want people to think we're just turning a blind eye and we're ignoring that issue. We're not. We're working on it, but we're trying to provide it through a third party instead of the district.
Last thing I want to say. I just want to agree with the statement that was made about the children. As much as I love all of you in this room, and I think you are amazing, and I'm not, like, I hope you really feel that, because I'm not alone in thinking that. The kids come for you. So and I know that you all would fit in there, and that's why you're amazing. So.
And I always want my last little thing to top on top of that is when you look at high-end districts around the state, from where I sit in administration, is when you don't have good teachers, then your kids struggle, then your parents are upset, and then we have a never-ending cycle of just upset people. Kids not learning. So it's all one big circle. When you got great teachers, your kids perform and they're good, and you don't have parent issues. If you don't have good teachers from the top, then we have parent issues because kids are struggling, taking class, not turning homework, and it turns into, I mean, you look around every year and you look at the highest districts in the state of Texas, it's the same ones every year because they have the best teachers. Versus some that don't because they're not able to get those teachers, and it's just never any problems. So,
I'm gonna say too, the children are, there's a whole child there, it's not just an academic piece. The amount of time they're gonna get back to spend with their families on that Friday and not have homework and not have to be rushed to go to practices or games, that value, that time that they're gonna get with their family is gonna be more valuable than the academic piece as well. And that's something with families that I know that are in 4 days, they love that time. They don't wanna lose that extra day they have. Stress-free, no homework, to spend time with their children and not be rushed to all the things that we go to in 2 days. Now they have that extra day, so that is huge if you're putting children first, to be back with their families.
I wasn't planning on speaking on this issue, but
Sorry.
y'all been talking for a while, so now I want to say something. I agree with the home life balance. I think kids need time to be kids, go out and play. We've got them in sports. Like my kids are at sports right now in Allen. Like there's no time for them to just be kids. So I think that's one component. And I truly believe in my heart of hearts that that's one thing that wasn't really talked about at the last meeting was looking at the proposed calendars with those Friday days. As a campus principal, I'm excited at the prospect of having time to bring in professional development opportunities for teachers, not for the whole day, but have a structured part in the morning where we're looking at PD, and in the afternoon, being able to do that collaborative planning with teams, where we have those, what are we doing for remediation, what are we doing for extension conversations, where they're able to it'll make our teachers better, and it'll make our instruction that much more targeted, I think. Because looking at our calendar now, we've got like a PD day in September, that's parent-teacher conference day, and then we have one PD in January. So as a campus principal, I don't have a lot of time to build and grow them through professional development or plan with them collaboratively unless it's keeping them after school.
Is there a motion to approve participating in a 4-day school calendar pilot program for the 3 years beginning 2025-2026 school year?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes.
Y'all do not stampede the door. Principals, I want you to stick around for the picture, please.
Would you like to break now?
Well.
Oh, we're gonna recess. Yeah, okay. So with that, we're going to adjourn into closed session. Pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Section 551.072, to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, Section 551.074, to discuss personnel, and Section 551.076, to discuss school safety. I have it at 7:58.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
I have, yes, before I take those pictures.
Not right now.